Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, it's pretty hot out. I think it's 90. I'm not sure. It feels like it's a muggy heat, so it's not a dry heat. Um, we have wall-to-wall conversations about Roe v. Wade. Unfortunately, too large a fraction of it is whining, meaning to say, these are the terrible things that will follow. We have to decide among ourselves to act, not to sit in a corner and suffer, but to fight back. I've talked about this before, about how Democrats are full of empathy, but they lack the warrior spirit to fight for what's necessary, to say right outside. And yesterday I said that Senators Warren and Smith had the right idea. Declare this a public health emergency. Have the president declare that. That is a positive thing. And then I heard Senator Warren today on TV, and she made a very important point. She was asked what she thought about the governor clearing some people who needed abortions. And she rightly objected that the state had no business in deciding how a woman's body was treated. Indeed, to have the state making this decision for you is the exact opposite of what a right is. Now, we have lots of people talking about the percentage of Americans who are for the freedom, the right to be let alone, to have abortions is, 80% or whatever the number is. But that begs the point. It is not necessary to have support to have a right. A right is an assertion of the individual. It is not agreed to by everybody. It is the right for an individual to assert him or herself against everybody else because they have an individual right to do what they're doing. We talk about the freedom of speech. That is that the state can't suppress somebody who speaks. And of course, there are exceptions, inciting to riot, fire in a crowded theater. There are all these exceptions. So the right here is the right of a woman to be let alone to determine what should be done with her body. Anything else is some form of slavery on a spectrum from intrusion to absolute captive. And because this law does nothing to accept and to confirm a right for a woman to have an abortion if she's raped or she might die and all these other things, then we're cannibals. We're just slave owners. Women are not slaves. They started as chattels. They didn't get the vote until after slaves did. And they've had to fight to hold on to every aspect of that right. And I say this because I saw my mom work. I see my daughter and stepdaughter working. They should not have to suffer to fight the wars again, to be treated as equals that grandparents and a long legacy of women in America fought. So what are we supposed to do? Well, I think for one thing, maybe every governor in the United States who has the right mind should introduce a pardon for any woman or any person who helps any woman get an abortion, period. Okay, now, there's some states that won't do that. Our president, he should issue a pardon for any federal law that is used in any way, shape, or form to compromise a woman's right to have an abortion. If a woman moves in state lines and they pass some provision that would prosecute her, in my view, interfering in interstate commerce, we should come down on that like a pile of bricks. We cannot stand by. We have to stop whining. Oh, we do that oh so well. Oh, what's going to happen to this woman? We have millions of hypotheticals. On the local social media, so to speak, they were celebrating yesterday that some 8-year-old had been through 29 foster care homes and now was adopted. Isn't that wonderful? Can you imagine what that kid's life has been? Can you imagine what his profile is? Does that sound like a boy that was wanted? No, we're not going to do anything to him now. But what kind of a society forces women or allows children to come into the society that we don't take care of? So, I think that we also have to consider what kind of judge is a real judge, a good judge, who fits the traditions of judicial demeanor. You may have heard that a judge should never decide a case on any principle broader than is necessary to decide the case. Now, I don't agree with Roberts, but that's what he tried to do. He wanted to decide the case not by overturning Roe v. Wade, but distinguishing this case on narrow principles. I don't think that cures it. I think that was his way of having it both ways and hanging on for dear life to a tradition of a court that he would seek to preserve that has escaped his control entirely. But let's consider another example. We had Thomas on the court, and he wrote, not narrowly, he said, and by the way, this principle involving due process, that would also affect gay couples, gay marriage, there are other things. Courts do not do that. They do not give advisory opinions. They only decide matters that are ripe to be heard. They only decide it on the specific case. They're supposed to try to decide it as narrowly as possible so that the decision does not have the unintended consequences of doing something that was not foreseen because it was not considered in that particular case. So we have some idea how we can help people who need to have an abortion, either for their health or because it's their right to decide what to do with their bodies. And the second question is, after we deal with the person who's the victim of the Supreme Court, what do we do with such a Supreme Court? Well, we have 3 illegal justices on the bench. We know who they are. They're Gorsuch, Amy Barrett, and Kavanaugh. They should never be justices. They lied. They should be impeached. But do you think the balls of the Democrats are there to do it? No, because we talk in symbols and bullshit. We don't talk about the real thing that matters. In this case, that they lied. And I heard people on the air today talking about, we've got to stabilize government. If we actually were to do what we should be doing, prosecuting these people, that would be a distraction. What would they do with a home invasion? They stand there and take their beating? Because that's what this is. Our home, the home of democracy, was invaded and would have been destroyed if several things had not happened that defeated them, including Vice President Pence's decision to follow the law. We don't reward him for everything else he's done because he did this somewhat courageous act rightly. So, what are we going to do? We're going to impeach? Probably not this gang. Again, no balls. No guts, no glory. But what we can do is we can elect a Congress that chooses 4 additional justices for the Supreme Court to compensate for the 3 criminals, liars who are on the court, and 1 so that there is not an odd court. That's what we should do. And if we're not talking it, we're failing the democracy. If we're not doing it, we're failing ourselves and our history. And we look into the abyss where our democracy will fall if we do not act. So I guess I'm a little energetic today despite the heat. In my cathedral of trees, I'm glad to have talked to you today, and I hope you're all well. Bye-bye.